Changing teams in the NFL isn't quite as plug-and-play as it is in some of the other major professional sports leagues.
The sure-handed Allen, uncharacteristic of number 13 for the Bears.
It just isn't a guarantee that a guy who was successful for one team will be able to carry that over to a new organization. So let's take a look where some of the bigger names in the NFL landed this offseason and predict whether they'll be studs or duds. Stud, Danielle Hunter, DT, Houston Texans. I don't know about you, but I did not have the Texans signing Danielle Hunter on my 2024 NFL bingo board. What a turn of events that has taken place in Houston over the last year or so. They went from being knee-deep in turmoil following the fallout from the Deshaun Watson situation to all of a sudden, they're ready to go all in heading into the 2024 season. It's kind of amazing what one player, especially when they play quarterback, can do for an organization. But in any case, the Houston Texans have decided that there's no need to play it safe when they're ready to push their chips into the middle of the table, which is exactly what we saw them do here with the Hunter signing. But I guess that's what happens when a stud like CJ Stroud comes along and can accelerate a team's timeline, especially when he's on a rookie contract, which positioned the Texans financially to sign Hunter to a 2-year, $49 million deal. He's coming off a monster year with the Vikings, where he notched 16.5 sacks in 2023 and will be absolutely instrumental in shoring up the Texans' defense. 2024 is easily going to be a year in which the Texans are able to contend. Dud, Keenan Allen, WR, Chicago Bears. Well, folks around the NFL are extremely bullish on the Bears heading into this year, and don't get me wrong, there is reason to have optimism around the organization for the first time in a long time, but there's still one move that we aren't so sure about. The acquisition of longtime Chargers wide receiver Keenan Allen. Let's face it, Keenan Allen's move to Chicago comes with plenty of question marks. In fact, a lot of question marks. First and foremost being his health. When he is on the field, there is no denying his ability as a possession receiver. But doing that, staying on the field, has been a pretty significant struggle for him throughout his career, and even more so in recent years. And while Caleb Williams is expected to step in as the starter, and Chicago wants him to establish himself as the franchise QB for years to come, that is also far from a guarantee. Even if he does develop into a star, that doesn't necessarily mean that it'll be this year, which wouldn't exactly bode well for Allen, whose best years might actually be behind him now. All the injuries have definitely taken a toll on his game, and the declining speed will start to have an impact at some point. And while he is a smart route runner, Chicago's offense needs explosive playmakers, not just reliable hands. As the timing on routes could be an issue with a rookie quarterback, the Bears took a calculated risk here. But don't be shocked if Allen actually struggles to make any significant impact in this new chapter. Stud, Derrick Henry, RB, Baltimore Ravens. Ever since the Lamar Jackson era kicked off, the Baltimore Ravens have never really had a true bell cow back. Frankly, it's just been years, maybe even dating back to the likes of Jamal Lewis. But there is reason to believe that heading into 2024, that's all going to change, all thanks to the arrival of Derrick Henry. Baltimore was able to secure one of the league's all-time best bruising backs on a 2-year, $16 million deal. And if he can keep his level during the twilight of his career, well, the king could fit seamlessly into their run-heavy offense. Henry's north-south power running is the perfect complement to Lamar Jackson's electrifying playmaking ability. Defenses now have to account for 2 bona fide elite runners on every single play, making the Ravens an absolute nightmare to defend. Henry may be approaching the day where he's past his prime, but playing in Baltimore's system could extend that window. Best part is he doesn't need to carry the entire load. And honestly, he should be poised to capitalize on all the space that Jackson opens up for him. Dud, Russell Wilson, QB, Pittsburgh Steelers. While we can kinda see what the Steelers were going for, taking a 2-pronged approach at acquiring a quarterback in free agency, the more that this offseason has gone on, the more it's been reinforced that the decision to sign former Seahawks star signal caller Russell Wilson is a real head-scratcher. Bringing in an aging star like Wilson in Pittsburgh feels like a desperate move by a team trying to find its way after years of instability at quarterback. I understand that it was miserable to have Kenny Pickett under center, but still, I don't know. This just seems a little bit rash. Wilson's tenure in Denver was very rough, to put it mildly. And to be honest, it was just straight up an unmitigated disaster. And while Pittsburgh has a solid defense and young offensive pieces, it's hard to see how Wilson fits into the Steelers' identity. He isn't exactly the team-first, gritty guy that the Steelers are typically known for. And to make matters even worse, his mobility is just not what it used to be. And Pittsburgh's offensive line isn't built to protect a quarterback who holds the ball as long as Wilson does. This partnership looks doomed to fail from the start, and I wouldn't be shocked to see him benched midway through the season. Stud Calvin Ridley, WR, Tennessee Titans. Last year, the Titans had one of the weakest receiving corps in the NFL, bar none. To put it lightly, they had a little bit of DeAndre Hopkins and then nobody else. Ryan Tannehill, Malik Willis, and to some extent Will Levis all caught some flack for the way that the offense played, but I really don't know how you can blame these guys with the pieces that were put around them. There were just no other receivers other than Hopkins last year that averaged at least 2 catches per game, which is really tough to do. Fortunately, Tennessee has sought to patch that hole up, and they've done it in a rather strategic way, pillaging the Jacksonville Jaguars for one of the most talented offensive weapons in Calvin Ridley. The wideout looked a little bit off last year, but let's not forget, he was just trying to get his career back on track. It should be fascinating to see what he looks like heading into the second year of his second act, especially with a proven vet like Hopkins to learn from. Dud, Geno Stone, safety, Cincinnati Bengals. Paying for a breakout year always carries some risks, but the Cincinnati Bengals appear to have spent wisely on Geno Stone. He accepted a 2-year, $15 million agreement after collecting 68 tackles and 7 interceptions in 2023. Stone is a tremendous on-paper addition to a defense that yielded a league-worst 8.1 yards per pass attempt last season. But let's pump the brakes a bit, because if we know one thing about the NFL, it's that buyers better beware when overpaying for a guy that's coming off one good season. You never know what kind of good fortune helped pull that one good year altogether, or in some cases, how a guy is wired internally. There's always the risk of the money going to their head, and then next thing you know, he's looking washed up as it gets. Stone could shore up their leaky secondary, but there's also reason to be skeptical about the relatively unproven safety, especially at the price tag. So let's just say that there's a very good chance that he'll leave Bengals fans feeling like they got less than they bargained for. Stud Christian Wilkins, DT, Las Vegas Raiders. Under new head coach Antonio Pierce, it's clear that the Las Vegas Raiders are trying to forge a new identity, a defense-first identity. Christian Wilkins is a huge part of that plan. In the decision to sign him away from the Dolphins to a deal worth nearly $85 million in guaranteed money is a major investment. But you know, Wilkins is worth every penny here. They were off to a great start in terms of building that new identity with the likes of Max Crosby leading the way and Pierce's gritty mentality leading the team. Now, adding a guy like Wilkins, well, they just might be able to pull off the 180. He's an absolute force on the interior, commanding double teams and should be able to open up opportunities for Max Crosby in new ways and just wreak havoc off the edge. With Wilkins anchoring the defensive line, the Raiders have the makings of a formidable front that could give opposing offenses fits all season long, which would make this acquisition a huge win for the Raiders. Dud Carlton Davis, CB, Detroit Lions. The Lions made a bold but very necessary move to bolster their secondary this offseason by trading for Carlton Davis. But, you know, it's hard to shake the feeling that this could be a huge mistake. Truthfully, Davis had a forgettable 2023 season and hasn't been the shutdown corner that he once was in recent years. We understand that Detroit's pass defense was among the worst in the league last year, ranking 30th with 7.4 yards per pass attempt. But it isn't quite clear how a potentially washed up Carlton Davis is gonna be the solution. At a bare minimum, he'll keep the Lions' defense at par. And at worst case scenario, well, we may end up in a situation where he's actually causing Detroit more harm than good. If Davis can't establish himself as a difference maker in Motown, the Lions' investment will look like a major misstep in what was otherwise a very strong offseason for the team. So here's hoping that it doesn't come to that. Stud Haason Reddick, DE, New York Jets. It's clear that the Jets are all in on a Super Bowl run in 2024, which is understandable after the devastation that they endured last season in year one of the Aaron Rodgers experiment. And yeah, while it's gotten off to a rocky start for Haason Reddick in New York, we think that this may ultimately prove to be a much better move than anyone thinks. Yeah, Reddick is still beefing with the team over the uncertainty of his contract situation, but hey, history says that when push comes to shove and the real money is on the line, that, yeah, he's gonna play. Reddick has racked up big sack numbers over the last few seasons, and he will be a terror for opposing quarterbacks in 2024. You know, if and when he actually gets on the field. It's hard to find guys that can put up 11 plus sacks, so when you can get them on the relatively cheap, you have to go for it. Which, hey, that's exactly what the Jets did. Don't be surprised if once he finally gets out there, whether a long-term contract is resolved or not, that Reddick puts on a show that has the Jets fans that are currently cursing him right now to start singing his praises. Dud L'Jarius Sneed, CB, the Tennessee Titans. Sneed had a breakout season for Kansas City in 2023. And yes, he was a critical part of their Super Bowl run. That is absolutely the case. But we're a little bearish on him joining a new squad with the Tennessee Titans. After all, he's stepping out of one of the most effective defensive systems around the league and joining a team that is completely in flux. And what, they're expecting him to sustain that level of play? I don't know about you, but that sounds like a pretty big gamble. The Titans shelled out a hefty 4-year, $55 million deal for the 27-year-old corner. But one standout season does not guarantee future success. Sorry, Titans fans, but this one could end up being just a huge old dud. But which NFL star do you think will be a stud with their new team? Which ones do you think are going to be duds? What do you think we got wrong here? What do you think we got right? Was there anyone that we may have missed? Let us know in the comment section below. And hey, if you liked this video, or even learned a thing or two, clicking the like button really helps us out a lot. And you know, we greatly appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, well, hey, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.